Hey guys, it's Wilson, and welcome to my channel where I'll talk about finance, macroeconomics, and real estate as an asset class. If you like any of those things, don't forget to hit the bell and subscribe so you'll be notified of upcoming videos. Last week we talked about the long-term debt cycle. Through many short-term debt cycles, your debt repayments rise faster than your income, and eventually, in the long-term debt cycle, there's a deleveraging. And that's what we'll learn about this week. There's a difference between a recession and a deleveraging. In a deleveraging, borrowers' debt burdens have gone too big and it cannot be relieved by lowering interest rates. Lenders have realized that the debts have become too large to be paid back fully. Borrowers lost the ability to repay their debts and collateral has lost value. They feel the opposite of wealthy. They feel crippled with debt. Lenders stop lending and borrowers stop borrowing. Think of the economy as not creditworthy. The problem is the debt burden is too high. And there's 4 ways to combat this. 1, there's cut spending, known as austerity. 2, you could reduce debt. You could do this by defaulting on debt or restructuring debt. 3, you could redistribute wealth. And 4, you could print money. These 4 ways in handling debt has happened in every deleveraging in modern history. USA in the 1930s, United Kingdom in the 1750s, Japan in the 1990s, and Spain and Italy in the 2010s. First thing, cut spending, known as austerity. Usually households, businesses, and governments cut spending to pay down debt. Borrowers stop taking on new debt and they start paying their old debts down. You might expect the debt burden to decrease, but the opposite happens. Because spending is cut, there's a decrease in spending. And remember, since one person's spending is another person's income, incomes fall faster than debts repaid, and the debt burden increases. This leads to more deflation, businesses cut jobs, there's increase in unemployment, decrease in spending, and decrease in income. The second way to handle deleveraging is to reduce debt, by either restructuring the debt or defaulting on debt. Many borrowers are unable to repay their loans. Remember, credit is an asset to the lender and a liability to the borrower. When a borrower can't repay, people get nervous that the bank can't repay them. So they rush to the bank to withdraw their money. Banks get squeezed. Banks, people, and businesses default on their loans. This severe economic contraction is a depression. A big part of depression is people realizing that much of their wealth isn't there. Their assets have decreased in value. Think back to the example of the bar, where the bartender had a bar tab, credit, and if the beer drinker defaults on their debt and walks away, that bar tab is worthless. And at the end of the night, the bartender is without any economic appreciation. The other alternative is debt restructuring. Lenders are willing to get a little of something than all of nothing. Lenders are willing to get paid back less in either a longer time frame or lower interest, even though some debt disappears. But remember, debt to a lender is a source of income and an asset. Income and asset values fall faster. The debt burdens get worse. Like cutting spending, debt restructuring is painful and deflationary. So how does it affect the government? Taxes is a source of income for the government. And if there's less income, there's less taxes. And if there's less taxes, there's less income for the government. At the same time, unemployment rates skyrocket, and the government has to increase their unemployment program. So the government has to do stimulus plans to increase spending to make up for the difference in the economy. At this time, the budget deficit explodes because they spend more than they collect back in taxes. So the government could either do 2 things. They could increase taxes or they could borrow money. The third option is to redistribute wealth. Who's the money going to come from? That's right, you raise taxes on the wealthy. This facilitates the redistribution of money from the haves and the have-nots. This creates social tension. The haves resent the have-nots. This process can be between countries or within a country, and this can lead to political change. Remember, most of what people thought was money is actually credit, and when credit disappears, there's not enough money. There's the fourth option, and that's printing money. The central bank can print money. Since interest rates are already at 0, the central bank can print money. Unlike the 3 ways we already covered, that's deflationary. Printing money is actually inflationary. The central bank uses newly printed money to buy financial assets and government bonds. This has happened in the USA in the 1930s, and it's happened again in the great financial crisis in 2008. This drives asset prices up, and it makes borrowers creditworthy again. The central bank can print money, and they can only buy financial assets. This helps the wealthy because they are the ones that own financial assets. The central government cannot print money, but they could only buy goods and services and put money back into the economy. Both must cooperate together to stimulate the economy. The central bank buys government bonds, which essentially lends money to the central government. This allows government deficits and increases spending through stimulus plans and unemployment programs. This increases people's income in the economy, but it also increases government debt. However, it lowers the total economy's debt burden. To maintain stability, the 3 deflationary ways have to balance out the inflationary ways of printing money. This balance of deflationary waves versus inflationary waves can be balanced beautifully. Debts decline relative to income. Real economic growth is positive, and inflation is not a problem. It's achieved by the right balance. Will printing money cause inflation? It won't if it offsets falling credit. Remember, spending drives the economy. $1 paid for with money is the same as $1 paid for with credit. By printing money, the central bank can make up for the disappearance of credit. And this is a key point. You have to get your rate of income growth to outpace your rate of interest on debt. Basically, your income needs to grow faster than your debt. Think, for example, a country that has a debt to income ratio of 100%. They have $1 trillion in debt and $1 trillion in GDP income. If your debt is growing at 2%, and your GDP is growing at 1%, through time, your debt burden will grow bigger and bigger. If you get this to balance, your rate of interest on your debt at 2% and your income growth is at 3%, then you could grow your way out of this. Then it's manageable. But if you print too much money, it causes runaway inflation, where your income grows too fast relative to your debt. Runaway inflation will be a problem because your dollars will be worthless. Think, for example, in Germany in the 1920s. People bring wheelbarrows of money just to buy a loaf of bread. If balanced, a deleveraging shock won't be as painful. When incomes match the productivity curve, there's increased spending, increased income, which makes people more creditworthy, which increases borrowing, and lenders begin lending again, and the economy grows again, and it reflates. Of course, the economy is more complex than this. However, laying the short-term debt cycle on top of the long-term debt cycle and laying both of those on top of the productivity line gives you a reasonably good template to know where you've been, know where you are now, and know where we're headed in the future. So in summary, there's 3 takeaways that you could do. First is, on your personal balance sheet, don't let your debts rise faster than your income because you're gonna be swallowed up in debt. And 2, do everything you can to increase your productivity. And 3, use debt as leverage so you can allocate resources to buy income generating assets. And that's it. That's how the economy works. If you learned anything or if you like this series, don't forget to hit the like, bell, or subscribe so you'll be notified of upcoming videos. See you guys soon.